Greetings, Psych 341 students. Just checking in with you here as we wind down week 2 of the summer term. Been looking through your forum posts yesterday and today. Been enjoying them very much. Been thinking about this issue a lot lately. This relationship between technology, namely smartphones, tablets, and also things like Google, on how they affect our thinking and our memory processes. So. I got some comments on those and also some resources I'm going to share with you if you want to look into it a little bit further. Just one quick note about the forum discussion posts. I do have a deadline of Wednesday midnight for those. I start grading them immediately and formulate my thoughts and then share them with you here. So if you're not posting by Wednesday midnight, there isn't credit for doing so, since I want to, as I've said before, want to have the forum discussion part of it earlier in the week, and then you can turn your attention more to focusing on preparing for the quizzes. So anyway, that said, just some thoughts on, first of all, your application of the textbook material to the questions that I asked you. A lot of you picked key terms that were pretty spot on, relevant to the issue of what memory process is probably affected when people are using a device like a cell phone as they're driving, and working memory sub-processes like particularly the central executive came to mind for a lot of people, and I thought that was probably one of the more on topic or relevant memory processes, although some people did come up with some interesting and creative uses for other applications for other terms as well. But working memory, as you've read, that sub-process of the central executive can only take in so much information, and before it gets overwhelmed. Even though driving is a very automatic process, it still does require your attention. And when you shift your attention to something else, your working memory can only attend to so many tasks at one time, let alone just your perceptual abilities, your ability to see what it is that's in front of you and your periphery as well. So working memory is taxed, and there's a term, phenomenon called inattentional blindness. I included a link on the Moodle site that goes by that very name, inattentional blindness. It's a link to a video clip you may have seen in other classes before. I wouldn't be surprised if you had. It has to do with this gorilla in our midst experiment that was done by Dan Simons and Chris Chabris, and looks at how our attentional focus can cause us to miss very obvious things. And that seems to be one of the main issues in increasing risk of, for example, having a traffic accident while even talking on the phone. We think that, well, we solve the problem by limiting just to handless thing like a Bluetooth. That somehow that solves the problem. The problem, though, is not just the distraction, looking away and looking at your hands, the device. I mean, that's clearly is a problem, but actually people can drive smack into the middle of something or hit somebody even though they're looking straight at them, which is pretty scary. And it has to do with this phenomenon of inattentional blindness. In fact, another link that I include is to a little article on a guy named David Strayer, who does work on distraction and driving. And Dr. Strayer points out that inattentional blindness is a real problem because we're talking about hands-free devices too. We're just talking and focusing on a conversation, and you can get very engrossed in that to where you stop paying attention to what's in front of you. You lose sense of even what's not in your periphery, but in your central vision. If you're interested in looking at more of those phenomena, take a look at that inattentional blindness clip, and also look at that link that I put. This is in the second block of the Moodle site, by the way, and also David Strayer's work on distraction and driving. And related to that was an interesting offshoot study that Simons and Chabris did on a simulated fight. So there's the Fight Club study. It's a short study that I find really interesting and easy read, and suggest you check that out as well. Again, these are just for your own interest if you wanted to pursue more on this topic that we discussed in the forum this week. And then the other issue is Google affecting the way we think and how we remember. I feel like a lot of you weighed in on the answer of, yeah, it does affect your memory. You think it does, your use of your smartphone, I think the most common example was the use of a smartphone and its storage of phone numbers and data for other people's contact information. You don't remember that anymore. You don't try to remember it. So there's that issue that a lot of people brought up, that limitation or problem, and also some people brought up GPS. Your spatial memory can be compromised maybe because of your reliance on GPS over just using a map or your own wits, your own brain. So there's another study that I included, or this is actually an article. It's just a popular article that will link you to more studies if you want to look more closely into it. But the question, does Google affect your memory, is a link I have also put into the Moodle site, and comes from studies done by Daniel Wegner and others who have looked at how the use of Google has reduced people's memory capacity, not capacities, but their memory storage. They just don't, they're not as motivated to remember as much because they know they can always Google it, which may or may not be a problem. We'll see. What would be a problem is if people's thought processes, their critical thinking, decision making, if those things are negatively affected by technology, then we have a real problem. It's important to exercise our memory, of course, but I think the research, if it does end up showing it's also affecting our ability to think, then we're really into some problematic areas probably with technology. But the jury is still out, as you'll see in the research now. But definitely a topic worth pursuing and to continue thinking about as psychologists. Okay, next week we're going to be on the topic of episodic, semantic, and autobiographical memory. Our forum is going to be about this phenomenon called superior autobiographical memory. It's a great topic. There's a 60 Minutes clip that I want you to watch about people who have superior autobiographical memory and share your thoughts on those. As usual, the quizzes and the essay test, and that'll do it for next